What makes an RPG an RPG? I know that's a very broad question, especially when we have so many games with RPG elements nowadays. I think if you tell someone, hey, this is an RPG, they would be expecting leveling up, perhaps with point allocation, a grand story that they could shape in some way through dialogue choices, a certain level of exploration, free roam, yeah, why not, chuck a bit of that in there. If we were to boil it down to one word, so that I have an excuse to make a video though, would it be far-fetched to say that people would expect some kind of progression? Progression in games is really damn addictive. It's why I can lose hours of my life replaying Shadowrun for the 5th time, because sometimes you just want to replay the whole game again to take on a different race and class to see how this new character plays. And it always amazes me how these games seem to one-up themselves with sequels. Look at the jump from Persona 3 to Persona 5. How do we make turn-based combat more fun? Well, let's just chuck in this baton pass mechanic and whoa! Look at that, everything flows so well. Hell, let's just put the SMT demon negotiation in this game as well. And their own progression system of social links. In Persona 3, they just let us fuse higher-level battle buddies, but now look, you unlock new support abilities, discounts in shops, etc, etc. And how about Final Fantasy jumping into action RPG? Remember turn-based combat? Just push one button. Don't you use magic though, or you'll kill Prompto. Let's watch a car for 5 minutes, in between my 50th fetch quest. Hooray! Well, on the topic of progression and action RPGs, let's dive back into the year of 2001. Ladies, gentlemen, and everyone else, I present to you Dark Cloud. Dark Cloud is an action RPG developed by a Japanese studio Level 5 for the PlayStation 2, and was released between the year 2000 and 2001 in Japan and overseas respectively. But I wouldn't be talking about this game if it was just another average action RPG, so let's jump straight in. The opening of Dark Cloud has us witness what is essentially the bad end of a game. A bunch of cult fanatics led by an evil mustache summon an entity known as the Dark Genie, who decides that it's about time where he ends the world. But not before he just straight up eats this man alive, you know, just in case the game hasn't explained that he is evil enough yet. Meanwhile, in Narune Village, we see our game's protagonist, Toan, a lad with a sweet hat and a bodacious poncho. The town of Narune is currently having some kind of dancing festival, meaning that everyone is coincidentally outside and very vulnerable. Then, all of a sudden, the Dark Genie appears and starts shooting his big bang attacks all over the place. Toan tries to rescue his childhood friend Paige in a superhero fashion, when all of a sudden he is standing in front of the Fairy King. Are you keeping up yet? This makes sense. Just don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. Now, the Fairy King explains that the genie almost destroyed the world once before, and that he thinks Toan seems like a top geezer, so bestows upon him some magical fairy powers and tells him, alright boyo, time to get out there and save the world. Also, he legit just kind of dumps you into the wilderness and says, you'll figure it out. Toan returns to find that only the mayor of Narune is still around, and that everything and everyone else has disappeared. So he tells Toan to go and check out the nearby cave to seek help from the guardian of their town. And here we get into the meat and veg of the game. Once we enter the cave, the Fairy King beams in to say hi. He explains to us that when the genie was laying the smackdown on the world, that he gathered up as much life as he could and stored them in these magical floating orbs called Atla. Stay with me, I know it sounds ridiculous, and that Toan has the power to unlock those orbs. In these orbs, we find houses, people, trees, roads, rivers, and other bits and bobs, and now I can finally explain the whole second half of this game, which is city building. Once you return to the surface, and you can do that after every floor of the dungeon or by using an item to return if you're having a bad time, you can enter a top-down view of Narune Village and just start plopping down buildings. Every building has a certain amount of add-ons that you can chuck in there. Once you restore the building to its full former glory, you will get an event, which normally involves the residents thanking you for saving them and giving you a useful rare item. Not only that, but you can ask the villagers how they would like the town rebuilt, which leads to selfish requests about where they want their house placed. So you have a little puzzle mechanic of who wants the house to be where. That can be as simple as being neighbours with somebody else, to the shopkeeper wanting to be surrounded by houses for better business, to these muscle lads wanting to be on danger's doorstep every day so they can flex. Now, in normal RPGs you can expect some kind of personal growth. You do X number of quests to get experience points, and bada bing, you're a man now boy. However, in Dark Cloud, progress is a little different. But to start off, you do have stats in the game. You have a HP bar that can only be raised by eating an item known as the Fruit of Eden. You have a defense stat that can be raised by giving your character their favourite food. You have a thirst stat, which is raised by drinking another item. I'll get into that in a bit. And you have an attack stat that is dependent on your current weapon stats. So, to progress in Dark Cloud, you have to put a lot of focus into the city building aspects of the game. The items you need to make your characters into monster slaying heroes are found either in the pre-mentioned events that you unlock, or just appear in chests in people's houses once you place certain add-ons on them. And honestly, if you're a city builder fan, then this is a lot of fun. There's something really fulfilling about watching an empty sandbox slowly becoming more and more lively with characters walking around in a town that you created. And this theme of slow creation is the core of this game. Not only does the game encourage you to keep popping back into town to build, collect gear and buy food and water to help with exploration, but it can be seen all throughout the game. The weapon crafting system is a good example of this. For starters, you can customize your weapon with add-ons. These can be as simple as adding high stats such as attack, speed and endurance, or adding an element to your weapon, fire, ice and so on. As well as this, there are add-ons that will help you deal more damage to certain enemies as well, be it flying enemies, mages, you get the idea. Your weapon also has a meter that will fill up as you beat the crap out of things, and once it fills up, whoa, you can level it up. When a weapon levels up, it consumes the add-ons placed in it, meaning it now has those stats in it forever, and it means you can place more add-ons into your upgraded weapon. When your weapon hits level 5, you have the ability to break it down. This means that you can turn the weapon into an add-on with a certain amount of its weapon's power, 60% to be precise, which can then be slotted into your new and more powerful weapons, just like any other add-on, meaning you can have some beefy weapons by the end of the game. And if that wasn't enough, certain weapons can evolve into other weapons when they hit certain stats, which encourages you to level up a bunch of weapons and turn them into add-ons. However, you do have to repair your weapons as you go. You don't want to let them hit 0 HP or they'll break and lose all of their progress. This may sound annoying on paper, but it encourages you to take trips back to the town to buy repair powder, and at the same time you'll be going back to town anyway to do the city building, so it feels pretty fluid in its execution. On top of that, you'll unlock new party members as you play through the game, all with unique weapons, attack patterns and special abilities. For instance, the first new party member you'll get is Xiao, a cat that you turn into a cat girl with a magical potion. Hang on a minute, in she goes. She has a ranged slingshot and has the ability to hop over some obstacles in the dungeon. She also gets the best weapon in the game, Steve, a talking slingshot that talks crap about the monsters that you fight. Or Goro, the big lad, who has slow but powerful attacks and can open certain doors by smashing buttons with his mallet. Each of these characters has their own thirst meter. If it hits 0, then your character will become exhausted. You can refill this meter by drinking water from your inventory or by splashing into these little puddle zones around the dungeon. This meter can be raised with an item, but it also encourages you to swap around your party as you dungeon crawl, as only the character that you're currently using will get thirsty as you play. Now when it comes to combat in the game, it feels both basic and complex. Combat is fairly simple. You can lock onto an enemy, slap them around with a single button that can also be charged for a more powerful attack. You can block, but blocking's for cowards, so instead you do this little dodgy hokey-cokey battle dance to avoid being hit. The complexity comes down to the enemies you'll face and the importance of using all of your characters. Fighting a fast monster, Toan has Sonic the Hedgehog speed. Want to stay away from monsters that cause ailments, use Xiao's slingshot. Or to be more correct, use Ruby when you unlock her because she's better and not a cat girl. Fighting heavy enemies or enemies you want to kill quickly, abuse Goro's massive attack damage and invincibility frames to delete them out of existence. There is also this quick time event style duel system that you will run into a number of times throughout the game. It works kind of like a rhythm game, in which you have to hit the on-screen buttons at the right time to complete the fight. Overall, they're not too intrusive, and I personally found them a fun little addition. To avoid too many spoilers, I'm just going to talk about the first 2 bosses of the game, but if you wish to avoid that, then skip ahead to this time. Okay, 3, 2, 1. The bosses in the game aren't too complex, but they do utilise your party of characters well and are honestly pretty enjoyable, especially because they hit pretty hard as well. Our first boss is simple. Use Xiao's slingshot to shoot him out of the sky and then follow up some sword attacks from Toan. I feel like this is mainly a lesson in, hey buddy, don't forget you've got other characters. The second boss, in which we have unlocked Goro for, is another good example of this. Steve the Slingshot tells us that this boss has easily mashable feet, so we use Goro's mallet to crush some pinkies, swap to Toon and use his jumping attack for some big damage, and then we can follow up aggressively with Xiao's Slingshot to stop the boss shooting machine gun seeds at us, because seriously they will mulch your health. And while this might sound kind of basic, working out how to take down the boss and getting into the rhythm of swapping between characters as you fight feels really fluid and fun. In closing, Dark Cloud is such a fun and unique experience. If you're an RPG fan or even just a city building fan, then I would definitely recommend going back and revisiting this title. As well as this, Dark Cloud has also received a sequel known as Dark Chronicle. I haven't had a chance to play this yet, but I have to say after playing Dark Cloud I am super interested in giving it a go, and I'm glad to know that we got at least one more title from this unique mishmash of genres. Oh well, hello there. If you made it through the video, thanks so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed, then that would be very nice. Giving me a like would help as well. And I'll probably make another one soonish. So yeah, thanks. Goodbye. Bye. See ya. Goodbye. Bye. Goodbye.